The Chevrolet Blazer was certainly one of the many body-on-frame SUVs that started the craze of SUVs in the 90s. The second generation, which debuted in 1995, was the best-selling one and lasted for quite some time of 10 years. It was a great SUV from the start, but then as time went by, competitors quickly surpassed it in terms of pretty much everything. However, in 2002, it was replaced by the much more refined Trailblazer. But let's go ahead and check out this 2000 Chevrolet Blazer and see if it was a strong competitor in the midsize SUV class in 2000. Now, as far as styling goes on the Blazer, it takes many styling cues from Chevrolet of the 90s as well as the early 2000s. Of course, you have the chrome trim piece that runs in between the turn signal as well as the headlight, and then right in between the logo as well. And overall, I think the styling on the vehicle is fairly good looking, fairly handsome, and it's very rugged looking, and it has that body on frame SUV type of look that I miss. Now here goes the key fob for the Blazer. Overall, it's your pretty traditional looking Chevrolet key. No remote keyless entry system here. This is 2000. Our trim of the Blazer we also do have is the fairly basic LS trim. Now it is the pewter exterior color. With a full-on gray cloth interior. You do have manual driver's seat adjustments as well as manual recline and manual lumbar as well. Now stepping on inside of the Blazer here, even though this is a body-on-frame SUV, it actually isn't that bad in terms of the step-in height. It's actually just as good as some crossovers, to be honest. Has about 210,000 miles on the clock, still going strong. And what you're hearing there is a 4.3 liter V6. Now you do have the optional 4-speed column mounted automatic transmission. I miss the days when they used to put the column mounted shifters on vehicles. Thankfully Chevrolet still does that on their new Tahoe. A 5-speed manual was also standard back in 2000, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the lights and the hazards too. You do have an automatic driver's side window, heated exterior mirrors, you also do have 15-inch alloy wheels. Halogen headlights. Now powering the Blazer here is a 4.3 liter V6 producing 190 horsepower at 4,400 RPM and 250 pound-feet of torque at 2,800 RPM. With EPA estimates being 15 in the city and 21 on the highway, running on regular unleaded fuel. Now, like I said, a 5-speed manual was standard while a 4-speed automatic was optional. Now, when you compare this powertrain to many competitors back in 2000, it was a little anemic. However, it's not too bad. We'll see what the baby can do when we hit the road later in the video. But the main thing is that the Blazer didn't offer a V8 powertrain, which some American competitors did offer, like the Dodge Durango. Now, competitors of the Blazer back in 2000, you have the vehicles in the midsize SUV class. This includes the likes of the Nissan Pathfinder, Ford Explorer, Honda Passport, as well as the Dodge Durango. Now also, the Blazer shared many of its components with the Oldsmobile Bravada and the GMC Jimmy. And the Blazer can be had as a two-door or this four-door variant we have here, or you can have a pickup truck, but Chevrolet calls that the S10. You have the classic pop-up antenna, something that's getting pretty rare nowadays. And you also do have roof rails as well. Of course, you have all of your basic power necessities here. Power windows, power mirrors, and your power door locks. Armrest is actually decently soft touch. Now, driving the 2000 Chevy Blazer here, what you will find best about driving this vehicle is certainly the ride quality, especially for a body-on-frame SUV. The ride quality is pretty smooth, and it soaks up road bumps decently well as road imperfections too. Now, with that being said, the handling on this vehicle, even though that body-on-frame SUVs aren't meant to have very responsive handling, the steering on the Blazer is just extremely numb. It just really doesn't tell you where you're really going here, and it's just really all over the place. And it doesn't really give a whole lot of feedback to the driver here. Now, I know SUVs aren't meant to be sports cars with great handling. However, a decent amount of responsiveness would be very welcome here, because it's actually, the steering is just very numb, and I just really can't tell where the vehicle is trying to go. It's very floaty feeling too. This vehicle tends to rock quite a lot when braking very hard as well. But with that being said, this is a body-on-frame SUV, so this does have four-wheel drive too, which is pretty nice. It's not a crossover SUV with just a sissy all-wheel drive system. This is a true 4x4 vehicle here. Now, another great attribute about driving the Blazer here is certainly the maneuverability, and it's not as big as, say, like a full-size SUV like the Tahoe or the Suburban, so you can fit in some of those tight parking spaces, which is quite nice. And then also the turning radius is much smaller than what you will find on a full-size SUV. Maneuverability is excellent on this vehicle. Now, the Blazer also does feel quite small inside than what it really is when you're driving this vehicle. And then also, power from the 4.3 liter V6 we have here is decently adequate, provides a decent amount of power. Now, it's not anemic, or it's not fast either, but it provides a decent amount of power. Gets you where you need to go. Definitely has enough passing power for merging on the freeways and such. And then also paired with the 4-speed automatic transmission, it's a okay responsive pair. So overall, if you were looking for a mid-size body-on-frame SUV with a pretty smooth car-like ride and non-truck-like jittery ride, and then also if you're looking for one with decent maneuverability, the 2000 Chevrolet Blazer was certainly a solid pick in the class. However, due to the lack of a V8 option, other competitors you may want to consider, because they do have more power available. And let's go ahead and rev it up. very nice. I really do love the sound of that V6 powertrain. Won't find many crossovers nowadays that sound like that. Now, as far as build quality and materials go inside of the Blazer here, it's typical old GM, and that's not really a good thing, to be honest. But at least you do have nice soft touch materials. I was actually quite impressed for the Blazer to have nice soft touch materials up here on the upper door panel. And then the mid door panel is at least wrapped in cloth, as well as the armrest is slightly padded. And then the center console lid is slightly padded, but that's where it pretty much ends in terms of good materials. All up here is hard touch plastic, and then the plastics feel extremely cheap, and they have this scratchy feeling to them. Just very cheap plastics. But as far as build quality goes, that's where the Blazer really needed work. The build quality in here is very spotty. The interior trims and pieces don't fit well all together, and then you will find many panel gaps inside of here. A lot of the interior trim and pieces do creak a whole lot. When I slam this door, it doesn't feel very solid feeling. It feels like it's gonna fall apart, kinda. And it's just really cheap feeling inside of here, especially when you compare it to many of its Japanese competitors. Like the 4Runner had much better build quality and materials, as well as the Pathfinder too. Now, coming to the steering wheel, it's your typical old GM truck steering wheel design here, and it's very bare bones looking, of course, but we do have a base LS trim here. When you remove this cover we do have on this Blazer, the steering wheel rim is actually pretty thin overall. Now, coming down here, we also do have a little bit of storage, and then your cup holders, and then a little coin slot right there. And coming to the center console storage, it's okay, but it's certainly not the best. Can be a little bit better. Up there you do have a manually dimming rearview mirror. I'm actually quite surprised you don't have OnStar on this vehicle. And then right up here you have your exterior temperature readout and then your direction of travel. I actually thought this was pretty neat. Gives you your sunglass container up there, and then a little bit of storage right there. Interior illumination lighting is also right there. And then also the steering wheel does tilt, but it does not telescope. Coming to the gauges, fairly clear and easy to read. You have full instrumentation here. We have your speedometer, and then your RPM gauge, fuel gauge too. Then we also do have your ashtray right there. Now, coming to your radio, we do have an AM/FM stereo with a CD player. I'm actually quite surprised we don't have a cassette deck. And then you also do have your different presets, and then you could change your fader, balance, bass, and then your treble, of course, and then your tune knob is right there, and then your seek button, and then your power, and then your volume knob is right there. Coming to your AC controls, very simple, easy to figure out. You don't need a degree to figure this out on some vehicles nowadays. Fan speeds, temperatures, and your zones, and then your rear window defroster button. Simple as that. And right there is where you'll also find your push button 4-wheel drive selector, since our Blazer does have 4-wheel drive. And it's not an all-wheel drive system that you'll find on many SUVs nowadays. This is a true 4x4 system, so it's meant for going off-road. Now you also do have your rear window wiper button, and then your rear hatch is right there as well. As far as visibility goes on the Blazer, it's pretty good. Very boxy styling, so there's lots of glass area all around. Outward visibility is pretty good too. This vehicle doesn't feel very wide either. Rearward visibility is pretty good as well. As far as seating comfort goes, the seats are okay, but they're certainly not the best in the class. They're very comfy, very couch-like, I have to say, but they don't offer a whole lot of support when you're going around corners and such. Thigh support is also pretty excellent. Now, one thing I do have to say about this interior is that it does feel a little confining inside of here. There's just not a whole lot of space to stretch out. It's just a little small feeling inside of here. It's just not very roomy, I have to say. And I'm going to go ahead and shut down the Blazer. Let's go ahead and check out the rest of the vehicle. Now, I'm actually quite impressed. Materials do follow through in the rear back here. Still nice and soft touch on the armrest. mid-door panel and the upper door panel too. Now sitting back here, I'm actually quite impressed, especially with the legroom. And then also the headroom isn't too shabby back here too. And I have the driving position to where mine would be at. I'm about 6 foot. We also do have dual mat pockets back here, which is pretty nice. And then you also do have your cup holders right there on each side as well. However, what I'm not very impressed about are certainly the seats. These seats are pretty firm feeling overall. They're not as couch-like or as roomy feeling as the front ones, and the thigh support is just terrible back here. It's just really not all that comfortable. The front seats are much more comfortable in terms of thigh support, and I feel like I'm sitting on them rather than in them too. The rear seats also do fold down to maximize cargo space, which is pretty nice. And the cargo space isn't too shabby either. However, the load floor is pretty high, I have to say. At least you do have this little handle to pull down the tailgate. Full manual passenger seat. Glove box compartment slams right down. Pretty cheap overall. So the 2000 Chevrolet Blazer was an okay choice for a mid-size SUV back in 2000. Its competent drivetrain, as well as its many standard and optional features, made it an okay choice. However, due to its very aging design, there were some competitors that were certainly better. So remember that this is Cameron Birch from Cameron's Car Reviews.